Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to look into today is the case of Jeremy Bright, who went missing from a county fair at the age of just 14 and he was never seen again. This case was a suggested case by No, so thank you for that. I appreciate any suggestions you guys have. I'd just like to let you know, I mean no disrespect to anyone that I talk about today. I've just got this information from the internet and compiled it into a video for educational purposes. Jeremy Dolan Bright was born on the 25th of May in 1972 in Baltimore, Maryland in the US. His parents were called Joe Flannery and Diane Beatty, and he also had a younger sister called Esty. I'm not really sure what happened to Joe. I couldn't find any information on him, whether he was not on the scene, whether he left at a very early age, I don't know, but Diane did go on to marry a man named Orville Gulseth, who was known as Ollie or Oli. I'm not sure how it's pronounced and I apologise for my pronunciations, but he would become the children's stepfather. They went on to move to Oregon and they were raised in Myrtle Point. Now, unfortunately, eventually they did end up having a divorce and Ollie stayed behind in Myrtle Point and Diane took the two children and she moved to Grant Pass, which was 2 hours away. Jeremy was a very artistic young boy. He was always drawing and things like that. He absolutely loved it and he was actually really good at it. He was quite talented in it and that's what he spent his time doing. Not only that, for his age, he was 14, he was very tall and he was over 6 foot tall, which is quite incredible for a 14-year-old boy. And he enjoyed playing basketball and it came in really handy. He used his height to his advantage and would spend a lot of his time playing basketball too. He was very popular in school and he was also a very intelligent guy. He was just this very well-liked teenager who kind of everyone that met him just really liked him, and he was very close to his little sister. There was this annual fair called the Coos County Festival, which happened every year, and the kids really missed it. They moved 2 hours away and they really wanted to go. All their friends were there too because, like I said, they were raised there. So they mothered their mother to see whether they could attend this fair. Now, she eventually did agree and they made plans to stay with Ollie for a week in Myrtle Point and where they would be able to attend this fair. So they went, and whilst he was there, Jeremy met up with his best friend who was called Johnny Fish. They had a fantastic time. They really enjoyed it. Now, I just want to say here as well, I'd just like to apologise if you guys have read something else on the timeline. Now, when I was researching this case, it kind of boggled my mind a little bit. I don't know whether somebody got mixed up with the times, but there's sort of one count of events, and then on the other hand, other people have said that the order was mixed up. So I've just gone with the most prudent and the one that I think that makes the most sense, because by all accounts, Jeremy went missing from the fair. So the series of events that I've actually gone with, that I think is the one that happened, is the one where he did go missing from the fair. So I apologise if you guys have obviously read something else. That's just the one that I've went with because it's the most prevalent. So on the 30th of August in 1986, Jeremy and Johnny went to the Coos County Festival together. They enjoyed their day, they had a load of fun, and from what I can gather, at around 4:45 p.m, Jeremy makes a phone call to his mother Diane at home. They chat for a little bit, he tells her how much fun he's having and making sure that his mother was picking him up in 2 days, and he was very responsible. Now later on, Jeremy stops at his grandmother's tavern and that's where he met his stepfather, Ollie, who he asked if he could either borrow or have, I'm not sure which, so that he could attend the money, so that he could then attend the fair the next day. And he did. He gave him this money, he lent him this money, whichever one it was, and the following day is when things went wrong. So on the 14th of August in 1986, Jeremy went to the fair again. He took his little sister Esty, I believe with one of her friends, and they just hung out for a while. It was around about 2 p.m. when they decided that they were going to separate. So she was 9 or 10, I believe, at the time, and she went to hang out with her friend, he went to hang out with his friends, and so they did decide to split, but not for too long. They were going to meet up at 5 p.m. at the Ferris wheel. They'd arranged it, and that was the plan. So off they go, they do their own thing, and then 5 p.m. comes around, Esther's waiting at the Ferris wheel, and Jeremy just doesn't turn up. She waits for a while, maybe he's late, maybe he has, I don't know, lost track of time, and he never shows. She gets a little bit worried. She actually speaks to an officer, a police officer, I believe, or a security guard, I'm not sure, as to her situation, that her brother was supposed to meet her there and that he hadn't turned up, and she was a little bit worried. He basically just said the same. He's lost track of time. He's probably with his friends, and I'm sure he'll turn up. However, Jeremy never did. Now, Esther did say that she saw Jeremy actually with these two men and that he actually left with them. So obviously that got her quite worried. But at the same time, he could have easily come back to the fair after having left with these two men. We just don't know. So Orville went to work the very next day, very, very early. He never checked on the kids. He never checked as to whether they'd gotten home safe. And that was quite normal for that time. And for a small-knit community who would always look out for each other's kids. Kids would often stay out without telling parents. They would just often not be at home and have sleepovers. And it was just pretty normal in them days. And like I said, with him working really, really early, he just never checked on the children. Nobody was really ever worried about their safety or anything like that, because they just didn't really think that anybody would ever come to any harm. So it would appear that Jeremy was actually missing for 2 days before anybody even noticed anything. And you may think it odd, but again, Ollie worked as a logger and it required him to keep really, really odd hours. So he would often be up at 3, 4 a.m. starting work. So he just didn't notice that Jeremy was there. Obviously, with the work that he was keeping, he probably would come home, go to sleep because he's really tired. And then it's just like ships passing in the night. He would have just possibly thought that Jeremy was out by the time he came home, and he went to sleep. And so they just never crossed paths, and he didn't really think much of it. On the 16th of August, Diane arrives at Mill Point at Ollie's house to collect the kids as per the arrangement, and nobody was there. Now, when she went in the house, she found Jeremy's wallet, his watch, and his house keys for Grand Pass just in the house. But again, didn't think that was really abnormal. Didn't think it was abnormal that nobody was there either, because yes, okay, it was planned. Jeremy knew that they were coming, and probably Esty too, but maybe they were just out with friends. Maybe they just wanted one last hurrah with the friends before they had to drive the 2 hours home and wouldn't see them for who knows how long. With the wallet and things being left behind, Diane didn't worry about that either, and it was later confirmed that Jeremy would often do that, so it wasn't really suspicious that they were left behind because he was young. He would often leave his wallet and forget to take it. He would often leave his watch and forget to take it. And the keys were for Grand Pass. Why on earth would you take them out? You have no requirement whatsoever to take those keys out. They are not even for this house. If you lose them, they're lost. And they're not even for the house around here, so you just wouldn't take them. So it wasn't unusual for those items to be in the house. So basically, Diane rings around family, friends, and just says, when you see Jeremy, tell him I'm here and waiting and just send him my way. And they all kind of say the same thing, that in fact they hadn't seen Jeremy for 2 days. Estee eventually met up with Diane, and they realised that yes, he had been missing for 2 days. She obviously told her about the Ferris wheel, about him supposed to meet her, and that he never did, about the two men that she saw him with, and worried, she rang the police. She gave a description of him and what he was last known to be wearing. So he was wearing a black windbreaker jacket, a red tank top, blue nylon shorts, and black size 13. He had quite large feet for his age, probably to go with his height. Nike trainers with red laces. Initially, the police did think that it was foul play when they started looking into it, but then these rumours started going around that people had seen him everywhere, and so the police just decided that actually, even though these weren't ever confirmed to be Jeremy, that he was fine and he must have run away with the circus. Now, I just don't get that conclusion, because yes, he did love the fair and he really enjoyed being there, but there's loving it and then there's running away with it, and they're just completely out of whack. So I enjoy going to a fair, it doesn't mean that I'm going to run away with them. I don't get where that came from. And his family didn't get where that came from either, because they basically blatantly told them that he would never ever leave his sister. He would never run away with the circus. He loved his sister so much. They were so close. They had a brilliant relationship, and he just wouldn't go. He wouldn't run away and leave her behind. It's just not something he would have done. But yeah, they just kind of disregarded that and brushed it off and just said to him he'll be back when he comes to his senses, but he never was. I find it really bad that the police just never looked into anything. They never confirmed these sightings of Jeremy. They just brushed him off as a runaway kid, and that was that. They just really didn't do anything. But as I said before, people didn't really think that kids would be in danger. It was a kind community, and everyone looked out for each other, or so they believed at least. The local newspaper didn't even put out the missing story of Jeremy until 5 days after he went missing, and it wasn't even on sort of page 1, big bold writing, child missing, Jeremy Bright. It was very much in a small writing on one of the next few pages, and that's just so sad because there was not even any media coverage for him. This young boy was missing, and it was as if nobody seemed to care apart from his family. Many signs came in, none of them were ever confirmed to be Jeremy, but that kind of gave police enough peace of mind to just be like, yep, it's him, he's fine, he's run away with the circus, he'll be back. And I just can't get my head around that. His family were telling them, no, he wouldn't have done that, and they just still kind of were so blasé about it and just basically shrugged it off as nothing. These rumours began flying around, and with the police doing absolutely nothing, they just kind of escalated and just spread everywhere. One witness came forward to say that they had seen Jeremy at all these different parties at Mill Point, and there was within the week, and there was a big sort of rumour and speculation around the fact that he had been given a drink that was laced with an illegal drug, and that he had had an overdose, fatal overdose, possibly due to this, and died. He also had a heart murmur, so maybe that with the cocktail of drugs and drink could have obviously accidentally killed him, and that these people panicked at the party and that his body was buried. Now, the thing with that I don't really understand is that there would have been a lot of people at a party, I would assume, at least. So you would think that someone would come forward, surely there would at least be one person who would come forward and tell his worried family that yes, it was an accident and we were scared, we buried his body, but surely there would be one person. So unless the party was very small and only a few people, I don't know. But in my eyes, I would have thought somebody would have come forward if that was the case. Then a tip came in from a jailhouse informant, and it was that Jeremy was out with his friends and they were all at this swimming hole. Now, these 3 local troublemakers came by and they were kind of harassing them, and one of them had a gun. Now, this person decided that they were going to show off and decided to shoot this gun kind of into the water, and that the bullet accidentally struck Jeremy. He was left seriously wounded by it. So these people who were frightened to death, obviously they didn't mean to, if that was the case. They took him to a remote cabin that was 10 miles out of town, and they attempted to nurse him back to health. Apparently after a week or 2, Jeremy succumbed to his injuries and he passed away, and they just buried his body in a shallow grave 200 feet from the cabin. So this is quite an elaborate story for somebody to make up in my eyes. It could be quite plausible that this actually happened. We just don't know. So after the police of sort of months and months of not treating him as a missing person and as doing nothing, they finally decide that they're going to look into his case. I believe that it was actually 3 months before they decided to look into it. Estee informed them that obviously she'd seen him leave with these 2 men and that he never met her. And she told them that before, but they never took it seriously. But now, obviously, they were looking into it. They were going over everything again. A search was performed of this cabin that this tip came in for and of the surrounding area, but they just didn't find any evidence of anything. They began getting statements from families and friends. This was when Johnny Fish's sister, who was obviously his best friend, she was called Celia Fish. Now, she actually came forward with a statement that on August the 15th, she was actually leaving her sister's apartment when a man came in the building. This man was covered in blood. He just basically laughed it off and said that it was from hours ago and pretty much put it down to nothing. I believe he said that he was fighting or something like that. So they had all these bits of information, and because they didn't really look into it straight away, I don't know, it really made a big impact on the case. There were also these theories that he had ran away with a circus. He was in Florida. They went and looked into that, but It turns out that yes, there was a Jeremy in Florida in the circus, but guess what? It wasn't him. The police really failed this case. They didn't do anything for months. By which point, when they did start to do something, it was most probably too late. Any evidence that they may have been would have been trampled on, would have been gone by now. This is 3 months later. They began draining ponds and doing ground searches. They put up posters. But I truly believe that it was just too late at this point. In 1988, the show Unsolved Mysteries did a segment on Jeremy Bright. And 1 week later, they actually had the first real suspect in the case. In September 1988, 24-year-old Terry Lee Steinoff was actually charged with the murder of Patricia Lynn Morris. He had stabbed her and slashed her in the throat 15 times after leaving the tavern 3.5 months earlier. Not only that, he was in the area that Jeremy had gone missing from, and he was also his childhood babysitter. There was reports of the two of them being sighted on the day in the same truck together, on the day that he disappeared. So he was their first suspect. They didn't even gather this information themselves. They got it off a TV show, which is just ridiculous. So Terry pleaded guilty to Patricia's murder, but when questioned with regards to Jeremy, he never said anything about it. He actually died in prison in 2017 of a heroin overdose, so if he did have something to do with Jeremy's possible murder, then we may never know. I also read that Terry was actually one of the 3 people that was mentioned who was at the swimming pool that day in that theory. In August of 2011, Jeremy's family hosted a memorial service for him, presuming that he was dead. It was just to honour him. They didn't have a body, and of course they still didn't know what happened to him, but it was the 25th anniversary and they decided that they was kind of going to honour him and sort of put him to rest as best as they could without a body. In August 2016, a tip was called in 25 miles from Myrtle Point that they would find Jeremy Bright's body. The area was searched, everyone was hopeful, but unfortunately they didn't find anything. His mother and sister are still looking for him. I do think that they believe he is no longer alive, but they just want to find his body. They just want to make sure he's taken care of, to bring him home and finally lay him to rest. It was also said that an hour and a half after the man that was covered in blood entered that building, as I talked to you about before, that actually his best mate Johnny arrived and went into his sister's apartment, and he was shaking and he was clearly traumatized about something, but never would reveal what actually happened. People believe that he had something to do with it, or at least knew, was there, I don't know, when something happened to Jeremy, so he knew what had happened to him. And Johnny was reportedly never the same after that incident. He only remembered to a certain point, after which everything was blacked out, blank. He suffered from these terrible nightmares throughout his life, and he struggled with addiction and homelessness until his death in 2011. On a chat board for Jeremy's case, a commenter wrote this really long post about Johnny, and many people do believe that it was actually written by his sister, Celia. Obviously, how true this is, I don't know, but when you read it out, it's clear to think as to why she possibly has written it, although it could have been written by somebody else to make it look like she had. As I said, we just don't know, but seemingly it was written by her. It actually said, though, I believe that Johnny was there and witnessed whatever happened to Jeremy. I believe that he was threatened that his family would be next if he ever told anyone. I tried to get Johnny to remember, but he couldn't, and he's been a mental case ever since that night. I think something also happened to him, but he suppressed it so deep that he can't tell what happened that night. I wish someone would tell what happened that night. It was Daniel Steinoff I ran into that night, the man that was covered in blood. I don't think he was in a fight, there was too much blood for that. And that was what she wrote. Now, as you may know, I've already talked about a Steinhoff, and that was Terry Steinhoff. Well, Daniel was actually his cousin, and there were rumours going around that Terry Steinhoff was one of the people at the swimming pool, so maybe Daniel was also the other person at the swimming pool, and that was why he was covered in blood. The theory is that Terry, his cousin, and 1 or 2 other individuals were responsible for Jeremy's disappearance. But no one has ever been charged in relation to it, and Jeremy's body has never been found. Could these cousins have been the 2 men that SD saw at the fair that day? Could they have been the ones that murdered him? But what would their motive be if they did? Because that doesn't really make sense to me, unless, like it was said, it was an accident. But who knows? We just don't know what happened to Jeremy. This case has been unsolved for so long now, and Jeremy has been missing or not alive, we just don't know. If he was still alive, he would actually be 48 years old now. There have been age progressions done of him in case he is still alive and he's out there. Maybe he's lost his memory, maybe, I don't know, he has started a new life somewhere, which was highly doubted by everyone around him, but it could be possible. He went missing when he was 14 and he had brown hair and green eyes. At the time, his left index finger was actually broken, and more distinctive features that you may recognise if he is still out there was that he had a mole on his chin and scars on his forehead and nose. He was 6 foot tall and 140 pounds at the time. And he also had a heart murmur. So if you have any information concerning Jeremy's case in any way, if he is still out there, maybe you think you know him. If not, maybe you saw something, no matter how small. You might not think that it's important, but just please call the Coos County Sheriff's Office, because it may be important, maybe the vital break that they need to solve this case. You may also leave an anonymous tip. You know, it doesn't have to be with your name in or anything like that. Jeremy's family, from what I can gather, isn't really looking for people to incriminate. They just want to bring him home so that he can rest in peace. As I said, they think that he is no longer living. Please, if you know anything, just do the right thing and call the police. His family have been waiting for closure for 35 years. My heart goes out to the family, who literally at this point just want to bring his body home. And as I said, they believe he's died. They just want his body laid to rest, where he can have his grave, where people can visit, his family can leave flowers and pay the respects there. That's all they want. But again, maybe he's still out there. Maybe he just lost his memory or something. We just don't know. What do you think happened to him? Personally, I'm more inclined to lean towards Jeremy having actually died due to an accident, and that scared people were trying to just cover it up. But once more, that's my thoughts. Obviously, nothing I've said is certain. We just truly don't know what happened to Jeremy. But yeah, that's the end of the case. If you guys have any suggestions, let me know. I'll look into them for you. Give me a big thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe for similar content. Anyway, guys, that's all I have today on the case of Jeremy Bright. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.